Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to a new video. Before the video starts, I first wanted to thank all of you for hitting that 1000 subscriber goal. It actually means a lot to me, so thank you very much for that. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about hero talents and Slayer in particular. Now, for everybody that isn't aware of what hero talents are, this is Blizzard's way of introducing a sort of conduit system that we've seen in Shadowlands into the new expansion. Now today we will be talking about Slayer in particular. This is a talent tree that is only for Arms and Fury, and I think it's very exciting. Like, there's some really cool stuff in here. So let's dive straight into it. First of all, we see Slayer's dominance. Your attacks will have a high chance to overwhelm your target's defenses and trigger a Slayer strike, dealing low damage and applying marked for execution, increasing the damage they take from your next execute by 10%, stacking up to 3 times. Now this is a nice little buff, especially good for arms, I feel like. It's just a nice little passive increase of damage that furthermore increases our execute damage, which I'm pretty happy about. Now here I see something very interesting, overwhelming blades. Each strike of Bladestorm applies overwhelmed to all enemies affected, increasing damage taken by 1% for 10 seconds. Now, the developer note here says that Fury will also have access to Bladestorm again. I'm a big fan of Bladestorm, and I was pretty sad that they removed it from Fury, so us getting Bladestorm back is absolutely massive. I love it, I think it's really cool, and one thing that is very easily overseen here is that Arms actually has access to 2 Bladestorms, one from the proc from Avatar and one in separate. Now I think for Arms in particular this could be very interesting because we already have a talent called Hurricane that will increase our strength when we're Bladestorming. Now if we combine this as well into that, playing double Bladestorm, I think we actually will have a lot of AOE damage. I think it's pretty cool and I like it. So for the left side, we have Sudden Death's chance to reset the cooldown of Execute and make it usable on any target regardless of health is increased. It's basically a little buff to Sudden Death. I don't think it's necessarily anything too special. I think it's better for Arms than it is for Fury, especially with the talent below it, which we will get into in a little bit, but overall just a nice little change. The side note here is using Sudden Death accelerates your next Bladestorm, striking 1 additional time, max 3, and Bladestorm total duration is unchanged. Now I think this is pretty cool that you're gonna get an extra hit of Bladestorm in, up to 3 extra hits actually. I don't think it's necessarily anything special, just some extra AoE damage and a little bit of passive damage from your executes, just hitting a bit more. Now, below this is actually something that is pretty interesting, especially for Arms, I feel like, because Arms lacks some survivability at the moment, and this will take good care of it. You heal for 50% of damage dealt by Sudden Death. Now, as we know, Arms is struggling a little bit with survivability compared to Fury, so having that extra self-healing in there with the executes and the increased Sudden Death procs, I think we will have a lot of self-healing with this talent tree, which is pretty cool. On the right side here, nothing too special, just some utility. Charge removes all movement impairing effects and grants 70% movement speed for 3 seconds. I actually like this one a lot because it gives us an immunity to roots as Fury Warrior specifically. We already have Avatar on Arms obviously that will remove roots, but I think this could be pretty cool, especially if we have some dungeons that revolve a lot around roots and that type of stuff. And just the extra movement speed is just a nice little bonus, obviously. For the Heroic Leap, reduces the cooldown of Charge by 5 seconds and Charge reducing the cooldown of Heroic Leap by 5 seconds. I think this is not as interesting as the Relentless Pursuit. I don't see us using this talent pretty much. I think this one is always better. But maybe if there's a dungeon that doesn't have any roots in them, I think it could be a niche thing that you could use. Moving down, Slayer reflexes. Slayer strikes have a chance to reset the cooldown of Bloodthirst and Overpower. Now, I'm not particularly a big fan of the Bloodthirst builds, and I don't necessarily like pressing the button. It feels a little bit underwhelming. I think this is Blizzard's way of trying to force us to play a little bit more around the talent, especially with the talent below it as well, that also suggests that they want us to use more Bloodthirst because the cooldown is reduced. Yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of it. I think it's alright, and if Bloodthirst starts hitting more, then I think it's viable. However, in how it currently plays, I think it's a bit underwhelming. However, for arms, we see the cooldown of overpower being reduced by 10 seconds and or have a chance to reset the cooldown entirely. Well, basically, arms already plays a lot around overpower, so I think this is more useful for arms than it is for fury. Yeah, I don't necessarily see this as a very big talent per se. I think it's just a nice little bonus to your builders in your rotation. I don't necessarily see how this is going to massively impact our gameplay. Now on the right side, we see two more talents. Tunnel Vision. Your attack speed increases while you are in combat. Changing targets resets this effect. I think this is an interesting one because normally you kind of want to focus on one target specifically whenever you're playing Fury because of your haste increase whenever you rampage your primary target. So this is gonna even more benefit you not swapping targets. I think this is a little bit harder for us to maintain in M+ than it is for Raid. I think in Raid this is very nice of a talent. It's basically Dancing Blades but then in an auto attack type of way. In M+, however, I feel like this is a little bit harder and you will most likely drop this buff quite frequently. For arms, I don't think we're playing much around one target as arms already, so I think this is not really a talent that you are very interested in as arms. It could work, however, I feel like as an arms warrior you just swap targets too frequently for this to gain you a lot of value. Now for the other one, we have Thrill of the Kill. Execute increases your auto attack speed for 10 seconds. Now I think this is a very cool talent specifically for arms, because in your execute window you want to build as much rage as possible to be able to spend it on executes, because it's your main damaging ability in the execute phase. So I think this is like your go-to talent for arms specifically, and I think Tunnel Vision is more of a talent that you would consider as Fury rather than as arms. So I actually like the variation between arms and fury in this talent, and that you have a bit of a choice on if you rather have more damage in that execute window or if you want to basically weigh off not being able to swap targets but get that extra attack speed in there. Now on the bottom left we see Slay. Marked for execution increases the critical strike chance and critical strike damage of your next execute on the target by 5%. Once again, I feel like this is more of a talent that you would be interested in as arms rather than fury. I think it's a very cool way of buffing that execute window up even more. Right now, we don't really feel all too powerful in that execute window, and I feel like they're trying to pretty much get us back into that powerful execute window, which I actually like a lot. I think it's more important for arms than it is for fury, however, but nonetheless, this is a really cool change, and I actually am looking forward to our execute window dealing more damage again because of this. Now on the middle here we see Frenetic Flurry. Overpower for arms and Bloodthirst for fury have a chance to cause you to unleash a brief blade storm, striking all enemies around you once, and you can now use Pummel and Stormbolt while blade storming. Basically, this makes us into a AOE machine. They're once again trying to force us to play the Bloodthirst, which, I mean, this talent pretty much forces us to do, because a Blade Storm tick on all enemies is just enormously overpowered. Now for overpower on arms, we're already using that a lot, especially in AoE, because it has those seismic waves that it sends out, dealing a lot of AoE damage. So this will even more buff up that AoE from arms, and it will also give like that nice little extra bonus AoE damage for Fury. Now the fact that we can use Pummel and Stormbolt while blade storming is an immense quality of life update for me. Not being able to use your kick or a single target stun while blade storming is probably the most frustrating thing there is right now in the game. I'm playing a lot of arms and I do like my blade storm build, and I always have to be careful for mobs potentially starting to cause something whenever I use my blade storm, because is very awkward whenever you're bladestorming. You cannot cancel it and you have to kick a target. So I think this is a massive quality of life update. I do really like the fact that they're giving us that little proc chance of getting some bigger AoE out. And overall, I just really like this talent. I'm very excited for this. Now for Slayer Focus, we see the overpower damage increased by 10% for arms and Bloodthirst damage increased by 10% for Fury. Once again, for Fury, they're trying to give us that more damage on Bloodthirst, forcing us a little bit more to play it and make it a little bit better. Especially since we see Frenetic Flurry here, which procs Bladestorm from our Bloodthirst. And also the cooldown reduction on Bloodthirst being reduced by 10% or a chance of it being reset entirely. I think they're trying to make our build a little bit more varied. Rather than just always using a Rampage and a Raging Blow and maybe potentially Execute in Execute phase, they're trying to like make that Bloodthirst button a little bit better to press for us. Which I actually like that they're trying to do this, so it doesn't feel like a useless button in our rotation right now. Now for arms, we see an overpower damage increase by 10%. I think, once again, we're already using overpower quite a lot in both raid and in M+, so it's just a nice little flat bonus damage onto what we're already using for arms. Overall, nice little talent, especially for Fury trying to give us that more damage on Bloodthirst. I do like that a lot, and for arms, it's just basically a flat damage increase. Now for the last talent on the list, we see Unrelenting Onslaught. When you execute a target that you have marked for execution, reduce the cooldown of Bladestorm by 5 seconds per stack of marked of execution and apply stacks of Overwhelmed equal to the number of stacks of marked for execution the target had. This talent, I absolutely love it. Being able to reduce your biggest AoE cooldown just by playing the game pretty much is absolutely massive. This basically goes hand in hand with what we're seeing with anger management. I'm not sure if anger management is gonna impact the way that Bladestorm works. If it does, then this talent will be even more powerful. But it's just an amazing way of reducing the cooldown of one of your massive AoE abilities for both arms and for Fury, and I just absolutely love it. I do think that for arms, especially in AoE, that this talent will be enormously good, especially whenever you consider that this is already buffing up the survivability of arms, which you want to use as much as possible, because arms is a little bit squishier. You're just gonna get a lot of cooldown reduction on your Bladestorm. Now for Fury, we're basically AoE machines already, so having that extra AoE in there just furthermore makes us even better. So all in all, whenever I look at the Slayer talents, I get absolutely excited. I love the fact that we're gonna get Execute being buffed and the fact that we're gonna get Bladestorm back. I absolutely love it. The cooldown reduction on it is also immense. So all in all, I love the talent tree. I think it's very cool. I cannot wait to test it out in the beta testing. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the talent tree, what you would like to see changed, or if you like it as it is. And as always, see you guys in the next one.